Sketchy Groves Planning and Zoning Board. Is this our new member?
I would be, I suppose.
Oh.
What do I do?
Well, I want you to come and sit over here.
Okay. Sit over here.
Flip back.
Okay, so you're taking roll, Jim?
Yeah. Chair Lipp,
Here.
Vice Chair Crawford. Board Member Corning. Here. Board Member Joyce.
Here?
Board Member Close.
Here?
Board Member Leon, not here. And
Isn't it an open meeting?
yeah, okay.
Okay, I'm
Oh,
just.
okay, well, you said new member, that's.
I assumed that.
know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
misunderstood, no.
No, that's okay. I mean, since we have such a small group.
Swear in,
No,
swear in, as long as he doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Did you bring any booze? There we go.
You want any coffee?
Water.
Okay, well, let's call this meeting to order. And if I can have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Good. And the motion has been made and seconded by Ms. Joyce and seconded by Ms. Close. All in favor, all opposed, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved. Old business, so we're turning this over to Jim to give us an overview of Okeechobee. And the purpose of this meeting is to come up with some plans for a sector plan to the comp plan for Okeechobee Boulevard. Our goal is to be out of here at 8 o'clock. We have Veronica that has a pressing meeting, another meeting to go to. So we will try to attend at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
Let's get started.
All right. Before we start, you each have a little envelope in front of you. The P&Z meeting next week, we're going to be considering the day property site plan. And at the last meeting, when we were looking at Big Dog Ranch, there were some comments about board members not having enough of the specific plans, like the landscape plan and some more details on the architectural. So I have a CD in there with those key plans, and also a draft of the staff report, because we're starting to have a lot of meetings back to back. I want to make sure that I get you the information as soon as I can. So rather than doing a mail out next week, I just decided to do that. We'll probably do another mail out with the final staff report. There's a couple items in there that I still need to talk to the applicant about, but that's pretty much what the staff report is going to be.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go up here on the slideshow. At the last meeting, there was some discussion about members not necessarily understanding what the corridor currently looks like in terms of land use. And this first slide is a parcel by parcel inventory of the land uses on the border, and you have the same map on page A1 of your staff report. And that page also has a map key to tell you what the different colors represent. The boxes that have just the border and no full color are currently vacant properties. And we have right here is the Big Dog Ranch,
No.
which we just approved the site plan
The kids.
at our last meeting. And that's going to the council. Let me see, next Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Yeah.
Big
The-
Dog Ranch.
Yeah, Big Dog Ranch. And that property right there is the Day property, and that site plan is going to be coming in front of this board at the meeting next Thursday.
Isn't next Thursday our joint meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, the joint meeting is specifically for the Day property.
Oh, okay,
Now, that was one of the conditions of approval,
okay, I
that
got
the
it.
RETAG committee also take a look at the Day property. So rather than have them individually, we decided to have a joint.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Is this the time that I
Well,
have discussion?
yeah, I'm
This
sorry.
is a workshop. If you director, I'm the chairman. Maybe since you're not on the board, why don't you sit over there with,
Yeah, yeah.
but you can take that booklet with you, but not the other book.
Not the Day property thing, huh?
As long as Thursday.
Which book do I get to take with me?
You can take that one.
Yeah, and you can take that one too.
Do we have extras?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, yeah, we do.
Borrowing here. You can get them at the office.
Can we hold questions until after the presentation?
And we'll hold questions till after the presentation, and we'll open it up.
Okay, and,
So just make a note of your question.
that represents the existing land use, including two properties that are currently subject to site plan approvals and also indicates some vacant properties. Okay, starting on page 2 of your agenda package, we have a series of aerial photographs of the property along the corridor as well. And starting on page 10, we have a parcel by parcel inventory, giving the parcel control number, acres, ownership, and what the property is currently used for, is classified by property grade. Now,
Jim, just one question on that.
Sure.
So just so that we're clear, the only two properties right now, Jim, that are under site plan review is Big Dog Ranch and the Day property.
And we have the first seventh.
The church, right?
Adventist Church is in the process of filing. They had site plan approval.
I was gonna say, I thought they had site plan approval.
Yeah, they did, but they're coming in for change. It's a small enough change that it qualifies for an administrative amendment. They're
Okay, so they're,
just reducing the size of one building.
and they're
You wanna go right-
on the south side, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Remember exactly which parcel?
It's the blue parcel, right?
Light blue?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
The one that's shaped like a
triangle?
L laying on its side is the.
No,
the
they're on the
main-
Yeah, I
south
think
side,
it's-
right?
I think it's this one here.
Yeah.
It's at one of the corners.
Yeah. Across the street is.
Okay. All right, thank you, Jim.
Okay. Now, this, next few slides is sort of a quick review of some of the discussion that we had at our first meeting. Our objective is to come up with a planning and development strategy for the Okeechobee corridor. The principal tools that we're going to be looking at are land use and zoning maps, comprehensive plan policies, and the land development code itself, specifically zoning district regulations. We're going to be looking at permitted uses, and as well as special exceptions and conditional uses, and taking a look at the intensity standards, specifically floor area ratio. This is what the corridor looks like currently in terms of the future land use designations. As you can see, all along the corridor, it's rural residential 5, but as is the bulk of the town, with the exception of Southern Boulevard, which doesn't show up on that map. And if you compare this map with the existing land use map, you can see that there's a lot of inconsistencies that exist already. So one of the objectives I'm hoping to achieve is to clear up those inconsistencies in the existing future land use map in terms of existing uses and future development opportunities.
Before you change slide there, we have a question there from, sure, there's another question.
Jim, the inconsistencies are the Red Barn and the commercial next door. Although the Red Barn's okay, but the commercial next door.
Well, the Red Barn, obviously is a commercial use, and on this map, it has a future land use designation of RR5, Rural Residential 5.
Okay, so, and the commercial next door?
The day property?
Yeah. No, it's the commercial that's right, well, it may be, we need to give these convenience to the Red Barn. Yeah.
That's a church, that's next.
No,
To the
to the
east.
east.
The little strip center
That's
that's,
Oh, that's
part of the Red Barn.
part of the Red
Oh,
Barn,
okay.
yeah.
And where are the other inconsistencies?
Well, the church is the institutional uses.
Oh,
And it's primarily institutional uses that are inconsistent.
and just one,
Go ahead, Jim.
Grace.
Jim.
So, but the day property and the Big Dog Ranch property will now have correct land use?
That's true,
Okay,
that's true.
okay.
Good. The Big Dog Ranch is a permitted use.
So they're staying
in
rural
the AR.
residential.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, that's a summary of the first map, indicating by large categories what the land use mix is along the corridor. The wholesale nursery has the greatest number of parcels and acres, all the way down to commercial. This was before the day property. That the one commercial is the Red Barn.
Well, there's a retail nursery there, on Okeechobee.
Well, yeah, I guess what I did was categorize all the nurseries together.
Okay.
Some of those could be retail for sure.
Okay. So
Yes.
what about the little vegetable stand that's at E, is it F?
F,
F.
and OK.
Is that just a non-conforming?
Non-conforming.
Yeah.
It's the same with the mulching plan on both sides.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I can't really say how that fits into this. These categories are categories that were assigned to properties by the property appraiser.
Just in case they have additional.
The property appraiser use codes. I mean, even though it could be a vegetable stand, maybe there's a home on it,
Oh, I see.
and the
Okay.
appraiser called that residential.
Or it's probably a nursery.
Yeah.
Okay. Could I ask that one other little thing be added, just, and maybe it wouldn't matter, but just maybe for our own, if we could add another little column that had the FAR on there, just as we were moving forward when we're talking about it, just so we have something to compare what we currently have. And it may be helpful, but
That's assuming Plan 1 gets accepted versus Plan 2.
that's true.
Yeah, well, we can look at, we're gonna be looking at FAR and, under,
I meant the current FAR, like I'd be
Yeah.
interested to know what Red Barn's FAR is.
it's .17.
Okay,
And I do have a parcel by parcel FAR inventory that I can give you.
I wouldn't be so concerned with anything other than maybe the commercial and the institutional, I think I would be. I don't know about any other how the rest of the board members feel. but
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah, Red Barn, like I said, is .17. There are a couple of churches, most of the churches are substantially less than
Yeah, that-
.1.
Mhm.
But there are some that are greater than .05. But I can get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, back when we started to look at the corridor, we developed several guiding principles that we were going to be using as the basis for coming up with our Okeechobee strategy. First was to implement a sector plan or corridor approach where we would address uses along the entire corridor, discourage strip commercial and the accumulation of vacant commercial parcels, provide owners with additional opportunities, implement procedures to limit intensity, and we also made the assumption that if and when Okeechobee does become four-lane, that will alter the character. And the primary reason why we have that as a guiding principle is that when that happens, we think that we might need to take another look at the corridor in terms of adjusting our land use policies at that time. The last one used comprehensive plan objective 1.15. We have an objective in the comprehensive plan that allows us to, when a parcel comes through for a land use plan amendment, we have the ability to impose specific development or use limitations on a parcel when it comes through the land use process, as opposed to waiting for zoning and recycling. So we do have that tool available to look at specific properties as they come through.
Veronica?
I don't have a question, but I have something that is absolutely relevant to this slide. And I wondered if you would permit me to make a couple of statements here.
Certainly.
I just saw yesterday a webinar with Victor Dover of Dover Cole about Main Streets. And it was incredibly enlightening. And I have a copy of it. I almost wish I could show it because I think we would look at this whole process differently after having seen that webinar. What he did is show little rural towns around Florida and their main streets and how they look today and how they could look and how some of them now look as a result of planning for main streets and transportation. And his point was, and I've heard this also from Treasure Coast, I heard it as much as 8 years ago, you have to look at the transportation first, see what it's going to be, plan it, and then look at the forms that are going to be adjacent to the transportation, and then at the end decide what your uses are going to be. But if you don't plan for that transportation now, the reason I bring this up now is because you've made this the statement, Okeechobee four-laning will alter the character. I think we should plan so that four-laning does not alter the character, that we plan what that character is going to be now, and four-laning, if and when it comes, fits into the character we've established. Because, do you know how wide the right-of-way is that you're requesting?
120.
That's crazy. That is crazy. And one of the points that Treasure Coast made to us in a charrette that we had about 8 years ago was, if you don't plan for it today, DOT is going to come in and concrete the whole thing, and you'll have a thoroughfare. But if you plan it today, then you'll come up with something that is not a thoroughfare. So I'm sorry to have interrupted and made that point now, but it's just, it bothers me when I see that statement, because once they come in at four-lane, it's too late. Our character's lost. If we haven't done it now,
And you know, and to build on what she's saying, she's absolutely right, because traditionally DOT will come in with their standard right-of-way widths. And there's been places where, you know, municipalities have gone in for variances and gotten widths that are, you know, as small as 11 feet. And if you can go in with a 4 lanes that are 11 feet in width instead of their traditional, you know, 14 or 15, whatever it is they're asking for, you can take that 120 feet and reduce it down so that it's more conducive to what it is that we see our community to be. So if we know in advance, like Veronica's saying, what we visualize, what we see it should look like, then we can plan ahead. We can start having conversations with DOT saying, your standard road right-of-way does not fit in our community. And we already know in advance that we want to go for 11-foot right-of-ways. We already know that we want the road right-of-way, and maybe it's, you know, 2 11s and 2 12s. Maybe, you know, you work out a compromise with them. But it doesn't have to be that standard, you know, 45-mile-an-hour wide right-of-way to get that traffic flying through. That's what you have Southern Boulevard for. This could be a much slower traffic. We did that on 25th Street. Those right-of-way lanes are much smaller in West Palm Beach when I did the right-of-ways. They're 11 feet wide. And we went for a variance and they granted them. So.
I should make a note of that, Jim, so, you know, I think it's something to, important to, you know, to have as we're moving forward, and we as a committee can certainly keep that in mind as well.
I mean, because the reality is, if you have wider roads, people use wider roads to get from point A to point B. They just drive faster on them.
Well, this is the whole thing which
Is that what
DOT
we
has already
want?
proposed for Okeechobee Boulevard east of Turnpike.
Yes,
Is narrowing all those lanes down to 11 feet, because people go slower on
Yes.
narrower
Mhm.
lane roads.
they do.
And I think that, you know, this is DOT's own plan. So
Yes.
I think if we just tap into that for our town.
And if you put a median in the middle, we'll feel safer and drive faster.
Right.
That's another.
That is absolutely correct. And medians never turn out to be what you want them to be, because they're never wide enough. If you want a beautiful median, it needs to be like substantial.
The question is then, if you can stack it to one side or another so you get a definitive riding trail, you can get horses across this thing, and humans able to walk and bike across.
Yeah.
And I don't think scale-wise, you should require higher density or taller building. I mean,
No.
you'll
would
hear
love to
the
show
new
some of those
urbanists,
slides.
you'll hear Dover Cole, you know, talk about proportionality of the width of the street to the height of the building.
Yes.
So, I mean,
But I think his point was, that's true, but I think his point was, start with the transportation, because that's gonna dictate everything else. And slide after slide, he showed street corners and widths of roadway. And he said, you know, they're designing now to accommodate cars, not people. And we're in a community, we wanna emphasize people, not cars, and horses, not cars. And so, his point was, start designing for the group that you want to satisfy. And anyway, I don't want to belabor the
we
point.
may have caught him on a good day, it sounds like. I mean, he's head of the new Congress now. And he's also the guy doing Avenir.
I know he was in 2012, I didn't know he was. But the slides speak for themselves, so.
Okay.
I'm wondering if that's something that maybe Jim could get a hold of or someone and then make it available to us. Is that a website or something then?
It was a webinar, I can contact him and see if they'll let me share it. It's Loudon Friends of Florida. And I can contact them and see if they'll let me share it.
Yeah, please do.
I could just send it, maybe send it through the town and the town distributes it.
Yeah.
And then you look at it at your leisure.
If you could do that, no problem.
That'd be awesome.
Lawrence is right. Of course, he's dealing with urban areas too, and he's helping people decide how to make them walkable, cyclable, and how tall the buildings are going to be, in relation to the size of the roadway width, but he has many other points that I think are more applicable to us as well.
Yeah, because we're not urban.
It's similar to what you were talking about, Dennis. Remember the county showed, had a very enlightening seminar on roadway, on commercial properties and what they look like and what you wanted to get and what you ended up with. You
Yeah,
made a
it was all
presentation
just-
here.
It was all based
Trips.
on trips.
Right.
Yeah, it's very similar to that.
Yeah.
Reminded me of that.
Lisa O'Hara is, sorry, Jim, interrupt, okay.
Oh, no, that's some really good points. I mean, I think the current thinking is to have Okeechobee become what they're calling a rural vista parkway, with a margin median. And I know the town council has talked to the county several times about roundabouts. I don't think the county is very receptive at this point, but that doesn't mean we stop talking about it. And
Yeah.
the town has also talked to the county about taking over control of Okeechobee in the town. And I'm not sure where that discussion is at this point, but I know the council has at least, let the county know that they're interested in talking about that.
Is that a key thing or?
Usually what we think of the approval of Midway West, we have on that conversation.
Okay, the initial strategy that we presented to the board and also to the council was to add an objective to the future land use element of the comprehensive plan, along with 6 supportive policies. When we presented that language to both the board and the council, we got mixed reviews, I think. The board liked certain aspects of it and was not real happy with certain aspects, and the same was the case with the county. And I'm going to run through these fairly quickly because you've already seen it, unless you want to spend some time on it. This is a fairly easy objective, I think for everyone to support. When we get into the policies, that's where it gets a little dicey. The first policy was to support maintaining Okeechobee's 2-lane segment, and also implementing traffic control devices at certain locations such as traffic lights. It looks like we are going to get a traffic light at D Road. That's a Minto contribution. And also roundabouts. I have a general policy in there to keep on coordinating with the county to ensure that the county is aware of the desires of the town for the Okeechobee improvements. And then again, this goes back to the statement on a previous slide where if Okeechobee is programmed into the transit improvement program, we need again to take a look at these policies. But if we come up with our roadway planning policies up front, then that may not be as critical a policy as it would be if we waited until it happened. And this is where the staff recommendation got a little dicey in terms of support by the board and the council. We recommended that commercial development along the corridor be categorized into three basic types: activity centers, cottage industries, and individual small businesses. There was some support for the activity centers. Individual small businesses, I think, had the most support from the two guys. Cottage industry, neither the board or the council really supported that. An activity center is the largest scale of the three types of commercial that we're recommending. They should be located in an intersection, and it's solely commercial uses or a combination of commercial plus other uses such as institutional and recreational uses. The commercial component will be oriented primarily to serving the daily retail and service needs of town residents only. And activity centers would be assigned a commercial low or commercial low office land use and zoning designations. The cottage industry, once again, this was the type of commercial that had the least amount of support by the board and the council. The cottage industry would either be a home occupation or a residential enterprise, which we currently have in our agricultural residential zoning district, but they're severely limited due to the fact that they cannot have outside workers or customers allowed on the premises. We're recommending only along Okeechobee that these types of businesses be allowed to have outside workers and have customers.
Excuse me, Jim, Laura wants to ask a question.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what the specific reasons of why they didn't like this particular?
I think it had something to do with last summer or last spring. There was a real issue with the council on a gentleman who was selling guns, and he was applying for a permit from the federal agency that regulates firearm sales, and he had to get local zoning approval in order to get his permit, and he had customers come to his house. So staff could not give him the zoning approval, and then we went through a long exercise of taking a look at home occupations and residential enterprises in terms of should we allow customers and workers. There was some support for it in the council. There was no support for it here, and I think that the fact that they had already gone through that exercise on a town-wide basis, they just didn't want to get into it again. That's my opinion.
If you had outside workers and customers allowed here, and you had a gunsmith who is properly licensed by all badged authorities, wouldn't that be a rural type use, whether you like guns or not?
Yes, it would be. I agree with you. I personally think to the cottage industry, commercial is a good idea along Okeechobee. There's not many that agree with me on that, but I think it's a good use.
I think my concern was you're either commercial or you're residential. And if you want to be commercial, you should be commercial. And in this case, you have a residential property that's acting as a commercial property. and the residential property is getting all the benefits of the commercial property, but the town is not reaping the benefit of the commercial property.
What is
So-
the town supposed to do? Taxes?
Yes, yes.
Oh my God, I mean, that's been the death knell
Yeah.
of, let's
Lawrence,
build
we're-
and raise taxes.
No, I'm not talking about raising taxes. We are growing up and we are moving in a direction where we're a community and we're trying to coexist with everyone. So if you want to be a business, then you should be a business. But if you want to be a business, then we're going to create a place for you to be. And it's,
But it's less dense, you know, you have a homestead property that's not as dense as,
but you're a home, you're not a business. If I were living in a home and someone next to me wanted to have a business and they had people coming in and out with customers,
this is on,
And-
we're talking about Okeechobee here.
I know you're talking about Okeechobee here. It doesn't matter. If I'm living on Okeechobee and my neighbor next door who lives on Okeechobee, doesn't matter. If I have a home and I'm zoned as a home and I live on a home, it doesn't, you know, my property is a home.
I'm confused, because I thought we were trying to bail out the people who were living on Okeechobee and didn't want to live there anymore, and
We are,
wanted to
but
get
that,
out. I mean, so now
we're,
you have people who want to live there and run a business, and you're saying that's not being grown
no,
up.
what we're saying is the cottage industry is not a use that we would support. Now, there is a category that would fit.
The individual small business.
Yeah, so if you're an individual small business, you can have a residence on your property, but your primary use is a business. And you can have people work there, and you can have people transact business there because you are a business. You can also live there if you choose to, but the people who are around you know what you are. You are a business.
It's just that cottage industry had so many connotations, you know, you go on the internet and Google in cottage industry and you end up with this litany of uses that are, you know, they're all very nice and banal, but they're, you know, but it's not concrete enough, you know,
And
because
it's
we
difficult.
got the small business definition.
So the last few sentences were saying it's a duplicitous category.
It is, I just get rid of it. Why do we need
We
it?
have something that is very transparent and clear. You know exactly what it is that you're doing. It's a small industry business, and that's what you are. And we are saying you can also have a residence there. So that works. This is just,
See, sometimes over definition of things just gets stuff confusing.
yeah.
So anyway.
But that's
Right.
assuming that we want to have business along,
Right.
all along.
Well, I think, you know, and part of which John will get into in a little bit, and I think it's probably the whole crux of the matter, is this 49,000 total square feet of business on Okeechobee.
Yeah.
Jerry?
Well, my thinking on the cottage industry was, and we can put further limits than we have here. We have 0.025, that's a very small FAR, but I was thinking the tax account, or the music teacher, or the really small home-based business.
Well, somebody can do that now, you know,
Yeah.
up on North Road.
Right.
Teach somebody teach piano.
But you're not supposed to have customers come to your house under the credit code.
Well, I mean, you know, this is just, you know, this is just common sense.
Well,
But I think what
well,
you're-
I understand, but the
Yeah.
code, I mean, maybe there's some things in the code that were not based on common sense, I don't know, but,
It is or isn't.
But
But-
speaking to that, I don't think you need to create a whole nother use to correct a deficiency in the code. So I think home occupation, music teachers, you're allowed. And if our code doesn't allow them, then that needs to be fixed. Real estate, you're allowed to do out of your home. If you have a sign outside of the office that you're conducting that business in, you're just allowed to do that. If our code does not allow that, we need to correct that deficiency, not create a new category, in my opinion.
Well, it's not really a new category. Those are home occupation, residential enterprise are currently allowed. All we're doing is making some small adjustments. They're both conditional uses. You can operate them under certain conditions. Two of the conditions are, you can't have customers and you can't have any employees.
Well, I get that you can't have any employees, but not having customers, I mean, that's not a conversation we should be, we're getting off the target.
This one has workers and customers.
Right, and I think that the council was very clear, I think this board was very clear, I don't even
Yeah.
know why we're talking about cottage industries.
Well, I'm just running through what the original.
Well, I have a
proposal was,
basic
that's all.
question. Are we out to get as much commercial, I mean, I can see this is very low. This is, for the developer panting types, this is pretty low.
I think
But
that that's
it
a
could
great
be-
question.
This is getting lower. I mean, are we trying to, I mean, this thing where you're allowing all this density on the corners, one understands that from traditional planning, that corners have maybe more dense usage, but, I mean, it's like some kind of lottery system, you know, you're picking winners and losers, and you're crowning these, and you're not.
Well, my
I don't
question
know.
would be,
It's very unsavory.
what did the board send to you? I mean, you asked us all to do some homework, and you asked us to send you what we thought what the use is. You asked us to go through here and mark it up and send you what we thought. What did we think?
Did you get
Yeah,
result?
I
Did you
got
get-
two.
You got two results?
Two of those.
No, I sent one.
Yeah.
I know I sent one, I did my homework.
Oh, I didn't get yours.
Mine,
Yeah, who did you send, it to?
I sent it to Janet.
Oh, okay. No.
That's what I was told to do,
Okay, I
send it
didn't
to
get
her.
that. I mean, and that's something that, I don't think we're necessarily gonna get into the detail of that tonight. We can accumulate those over the next little bit and talk about those at some other meeting.
Well, here's what I think though, the bottom line of it is, and it goes back to what Veronica was saying. I mean, how much, if any, are we looking to put on Okeechobee Boulevard? And we keep going back to this piecemealing conversation, which is a little frustrating. I mean, we talked about the types of uses. We asked to take a look at this map to see what's there already and what's coming up. I mean, and to say town serving, I mean, quite frankly, Red Barn and what's coming on the Day property, and now what we have with Big Dog Ranch, we have 3,200 people in this community.
Yeah, well, the use of the term town serving, it was a way that I felt we could use as a basis for keeping it small.
I understand that, but, I mean, so you're saying, okay, we can have one dry cleaner, and we can have one of this, and we can have one of that, and we can, I mean,
What do you even need a dry cleaner?
I'm just throwing that out there. You don't, Lawrence, you don't. I mean, you don't.
I think the question is, how much business do we want in Okeechobee? Period.
Exactly.
We gotta decide that.
I think the town, the town seemed to say they wanted government light, and they didn't want commercial in Okeechobee.
And now we have
You can
commercial on Okeechobee,
You
we've
can-
already approved stuff, so what do we do from this point forward?
Well, you need to do something, or you're gonna get sued into oblivion at this point.
Why are we gonna get
Exactly,
sued?
because,
Because you've already provided some, okay, you go
well,
ahead.
you're right, no, what you're saying is absolutely correct.
Explain it in planning terms, because other than once you've granted somebody.
How do you can't prevent an application from coming forward. You can't
Right.
prevent someone from asking.
Right.
You can't. So how do you put something into place to protect the community from the worst case scenario?
But we're talking about a legislative change.
I agree.
So
The
it's on
legislative
mass,
change,
you're
the
good.
burden of proof on a legislative change is
consistency
with the comp plan.
Right.
Yeah,
With the
well-
plan and any other criteria that we have in our codes and our plans.
And I don't think we want to hint that we're gonna redo this in short order. You know, there's a few implications that we might, you know, maybe the planning for the road at the beginning would avoid that.
Mhm.
You know, if you do the whole planning at the beginning, you avoid this, well, hang on for a minute, the carrot's gonna be bigger. You know,
Well, I think the legislative change is, the test is substantial, no, it's not even substantial competent evidence. It's it's a reasonable decision by a legislative body. It doesn't have the same test as a quasi-judicial
Mhm.
hearing. The burden of proof is different. So you don't need substantial competent evidence, you just, and the attorneys can explain this far better than I can. It's what, well, let me put it this way. The benefit is given to the legislative body that makes the decision. Because it's what a reasonably prudent group would do. And so the benefit isn't to the applicant, the benefit is to the legislative body. They're presumed to have made the right decision, unless proven to have made the wrong decision. But this decision is simply based on I wish I could explain.
and by doing it as mass and not spot, you're.
Exactly, if it's reasonable, if it meets a reasonable standard of what the community wants, that's the test.
And it's not so much wants, I mean, you go back to the comprehensive plan of what your policies, your goals and objectives are. And if it passes that test and they deny it, like they did with the Day property, then we're in a situation that's not good. But if it doesn't pass the test, then they're in a very good position to deny an application. So it doesn't move forward. But
Well, if
the
you
question is, are our policies and procedure, our goals and objectives in our comprehensive plan enough?
Well, I think that's the key point.
And
We don't have strong direction in the comprehensive plan.
That's correct. Yeah.
The principal language in the comprehensive plan is that you can hang your head on either way. Sometimes is compatibility with the neighboring properties. One man's compatibility is another man's
Exactly.
incompatibility.
That's right. So in the case of a legislative decision,
Yeah.
the benefit goes to the legislative
Right,
body.
right. So
If there's a question.
So unless we strengthen the language in the comprehensive plan, we're always going to be faced with that dilemma.
Right.
So
And that's what we're
I think
doing.
something that was, you know.
I don't know that that's what we're doing, Dennis.
That's what we should be
That
doing.
is what we should be doing.
Whatever
I
it is-
don't feel like that's what we're doing.
That's right. Whatever it is that we want to recommend to the town council, we should be recommending it to the changes to the comp plan, as well as the zoning.
Right.
And some of the foundation should be sort of an even fairness all along the street. And not bunching it on corners and getting people to speculate on corners and
Yes.
building density on corners and leaving stuff open, or having the first person in get most of the square footage or whatever, you know, just whatever it is that, you know, it's like that bank ad where the banker comes in and says, little girl, would you like a pony?
Yes.
And one gets the stuffed animal and one gets the pony, you know, you basically know that something's not fair. It may be better it may be, in some places, it's better planning to put the density on corners, but I don't know if it's gonna
I
help us.
just don't know that, and the way, and to speculate, like some properties were rezoned on Southern Boulevard just to have them rezoned, and now they're sitting vacant with commercial zoning.
And they
For
were,
paying
no
taxes,
reason.
And they're paying taxes for
Yeah.
commercial.
they are?
They should.
Yeah, yep, they are.
Well, I also know they were given more than they even
Highest
wanted,
to best use.
so, I mean.
Okay, well, I'm running through this, just to sort of go over, what was originally proposed. I have an alternative, sort of a different, way, once we get through this.
Okay. Can we go through it a little quicker?
Sure.
Yeah, that's.
Yes, we do seem.
Yeah, I don't think we need
Yeah,
to see this anymore.
Okay.
I think we know.
Okay, and we get into the activity center, that's the area where, I recommended that we put a cap on the amount of space. And these are essentially, combinations of more than one business, multiple businesses at the same locations, small shopping centers or commercial centers. And I have several floor area ratios in there depending upon the mix of uses in the activity center, ranging all the way from commercial only at 0.5 to, let me see, what did I get to one? No, point one, if it was a mixed use center that included uses other than.
And is that going to violate the covenant with Day?
Well, Days covenant, we may want to reduce that 0.1 for sure if we go this route, but Days covenant says commercial land use plan amendments.
All of it not to exceed .75.
And this would be the mixed use with the commercial specifically at 0.75 or 0.75. But again, those numbers can all be changed. And then this is the one that had the most support from the council and in PZ. It's individuals, small businesses on individual properties. We also had as one of the criteria that the traffic generated by individual small business cannot exceed insignificant traffic impact levels on children. And insignificant is 1% of level of service D.
So my question here would be, if this were adopted, then Okeechobee could conceivably turn entirely commercial.
Yes.
That one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This,
Yeah, this has no limits on where along the corridor somebody could apply for it. And they would have to apply for a commercial land use plan amendment and zoning law. You couldn't do this in the AR district.
Hold on one second, Jim.
Yeah.
Here's where, and you and I had talked about this briefly, where I think that if this is a route that we go, we need to create a separate land use category and a separate zoning district for Okeechobee Boulevard, if that's the route we go.
Isn't that what we're doing?
That's what we,
No,
Not with this approach.
not with this approach, because
But
if,
just wait.
yeah, if you create a commercial land use and then this individual small business goes in there, now all of a sudden you've got this commercial land use that's the same as the commercial land use on Southern Boulevard. You've opened yourself up to the possibility of any type of commercial happening. So this has to be a different type of land use, and I think I even sent that, but we're gonna have to ask Janet about that, because I created a separate, when I sent my little thing in, I created a separate Okeechobee corridor commercial use category. I did something completely different, if that is the way that you move forward, and I'm not saying that that's the way we should be going, but if that is the way that we go, it should not be the same. It shouldn't be, this should be separate, it should be different. It shouldn't be the same type of uses that are allowed on Southern, it shouldn't be the same land use, it shouldn't be the same zoning.
All right.
Okay, these were just, okay, now, I'm sorry the print is so small here,
Well,
but.
just make it bigger, where you see
See, look.
100%, just
Yeah.
hit the plus sign on the bottom right.
because of the mixed reaction, I guess, to our first suggestion, this is an alternative strategy that, and I don't have it fleshed out at this point or any details, but I'm suggesting that we may want to create a totally new future land use category and support for Okeechobee Boulevard, and which would also require then that we create a new zoning district, which would have its separate list of permitted uses, special exception uses, and conditional uses. And I think by taking this approach, looking at the surveys that I saw, there were many uses in the CL and CLO district that members thought were good or bad, and then we get the institutional, there were uses that were good or not necessarily bad, but not supported. So we can go through all of the zoning districts that we currently have and selectively pick out a list of uses that we feel are appropriate for the category, or add some uses in there that are not currently listed in the code. And I thought with this approach that we could take a look at the Rural Vista guidelines, which I provided a piece of you with a copy of tonight. Look through the Rural Vista guidelines and come up with some specific architectural and landscaping requirements, standards, or criteria out of the Rural Vista guidelines that shall be used on Okeechobee. We've had two projects come through site plan review, and each of the applicants has said that they comply with the Rural Vista guidelines. They've picked something from page 10, something from page 5, and compiled a list, and they have claimed that they're consistent with the guidelines. Board members and some members on the council here necessarily agree with that. If we can go through the Rural Vista guidelines and pick a specific architectural style or a couple, along with some specific architectural features, we can put that in the comprehensive plan or in make it part of conditions of uses to ensure that the architectural character of the area is considered. And then we can also look at the issue of connectivity is then at the forefront in front of the council and also the board over the last couple of years, I think. Connectivity along the corridor is I think is more difficult to create than in more urban areas where you have more consistent uses along the corridor. I'm not sure how we create, if we approve a commercial facility next to a wholesale nursery, should we require connectivity between a wholesale nursery and a commercial use? And if we do, how do we implement that to the satisfaction of both of those?
Are you talking internal connectivity?
Yes.
Cross access?
Yeah, cross access connectivity, right. To help keep traffic off of Okeechobee. I'm not sure what other kind of connectivity there is.
Well, the equestrian one is certainly connectivity that we don't have. On one side or the other, you have a decent sized trail, that is connectivity. I don't know if you really.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Well, it's just an example.
That's what I'm saying, that's been an issue that has come up on almost every project we've looked at.
Yeah.
Do we want to promote connectivity
connectivity among these very different kinds of uses on Okeechobee, or not? And if so, how do we do that?
I think when we saw Red Barn and the one next to it, those were so similar that connectivity made sense. But if you have a nursery and you have that thing that they're doing east of Red Barn, or the thing they're doing south of the college, I mean, you would want to be connected to that thing.
Or if you have a home,
Yeah.
residential
Oh,
home,
yeah.
I mean, you want connectivity with the shopping center next door?
Yeah.
Or the church next door, or the nursery next door?
Now, you had that on Southern, that little road, and then you started to ignore it in different
Right.
spots.
And one of the things that we need to be cognizant of, is just that if we have an intensive use, like Red Barn is an intensive use. They have 18-wheelers lined up in the turning lane 2 or 3 times a week. And if we have, all of a sudden, now we have whatever we end up being at the day property, and we have it interconnected, well, then we've got 2 or 3 18-wheelers blocking all the parking places of the doctor's office or the daycare. It's got 2 18-wheelers blocking up the whole parking area, and I don't think that's fair. So I think that when we talk about interconnectivity, I mean, back when I first got involved here in Palm Beach County, the sheriff did not want interconnectivity because that's how the crooks get away. So, I think we have to, look at each thing, separately. Definitely, if you got a commercial nursery, a wholesale nursery, Adler doesn't want somebody driving through from a daycare center to drop their kids off, because they'll damage something, or they'll get damaged.
Right.
So maybe the whole reason for connectivity is to take the traffic off of the road so the road can run more efficiently. But maybe we don't want that.
Right.
Maybe we don't want that. Maybe if the traffic is so slow, people aren't going to use Okeechobee. But I have to tell you, we're talking about architecture. We haven't even decided what we want Okeechobee to look like. Do we want it commercial? Do we want it residential? I think we're going to decide that.
I think
so too,
I think that's the best, when I read it, this alternative strategy seemed to be the best choice to end up with something more town-like.
Yeah.
Because the people, the guy selling the place next to Red Barn, he picks his chips off the table, he could sell it and be gone, and then we're living with it. So we want to solve the problems of people who can no longer live on a commercial thoroughfare, but we don't want to
But here's the
make
thing.
carry.
And I know that there are some folks in here who live on Okeechobee Boulevard. Commercial thoroughfare's not here yet. I mean, I know that
Right.
traffic has increased on Okeechobee Boulevard,
Actually,
but actually, I was gonna say, I know people will say traffic has increased on Okeechobee Boulevard, but the trips are down. And I know that traffic is going to increase on Okeechobee Boulevard, especially with Minto West being approved. But we have to look at this as community-wide, how it's gonna affect everybody. So I do believe that this is the route to go, because I think if we create that category, and Veronica, I'm not saying that I agree that Okeechobee Boulevard needs to have commercial, I'm not saying that at all. But I think we need to create a land use category for Okeechobee that supports Okeechobee for the vision we want for it, so we don't have this piecemealing. So people can't come in to try to change the code, because if someone comes in to do a land use amendment and even if we say no, they come before this council, this board, and we say no, and the town council, whoever they may be, says yes, they're gonna change it.
My concern is that we are going to create a comp plan change and a new zoning district that is going to allow commercial, I guess.
Well, we don't know that yet.
But then why would we bother doing this? if we, let's say that, for the sake of discussion, that we like the activity center, but no other commercial along Okeechobee. Would we really wanna create a new, we might wanna strengthen the comprehensive plan so that it remains the way we're recommending. But would we really wanna create a new comprehensive, a new future land use category come along there? Because as soon as we do that,
Well, then you'd have to, if you left the ones in the corner, 1 and 5 or 2 and 10 or whatever, and they had to buy development rights from those in the middle that you're not allowing anything. So you could level the playing field and get everybody out for a reasonable sum. I mean, you're not doing the Federal Reserve printing money thing like on Southern, but you're getting them out in what you might view as reasonable.
yeah, I see what you're saying, so
So
everyone
sending
has a
the
fair
signal.
shot at it,
Right.
but the actual development is only gonna occur in specific places.
It's a possibility. I don't know if the people would like it or not.
I mean, if there was gonna be any commercial along Okeechobee, personally, I would, at this point, as we talk, I would rather see one activity center where there's a street light and make it the main street of the town. It's right in between both areas. I know we never talked about that.
Does
We did
Minto,
talk about that.
Hold on a second.
does Minto line up with D Road? Does Minto have a road that points to D Road and that's gonna, then the Leangs just make an attachment road?
No, that's
No.
zero.
So why would they pick D Road over the traffic road? Why would they pick C Road?
Probably because D Road is the town's, essentially, cross
Yeah,
both,
because
the
D
north,
Road
south,
is-
Boulevard, street.
The council has previously expressed interest of having a traffic light at D, and Minto, in my mind, was just making some points with the town
D goes to the side.
by giving the town something they wanted.
It's two roads going to the south.
So why don't they line up?
CD.
Besides that, we don't want Minto's traffic coming through our community.
Well, that's why they came and tried to help us. Redo
This is not gonna be
Well,
easy.
Well,
Okeechobee.
one of the, part of the reason why I started thinking along these lines is I think that whenever we're talking about commercial on Okeechobee, we're thinking about looking at the uses that you can currently do under our zoning districts, and a lot of those are like urban, suburban type retail and service uses. Why can't we create a land use category that allows businesses, but not necessarily urban types of businesses, but more agricultural type businesses?
That'd be great.
I mean, in Dennis's, I had a thing at the bottom of the page that said other uses, and then it said blacksmith.
Well, is that going towards art, like with the blacksmith, or is that just a?
There's a guy that's on Southern Boulevard who is a genuine blacksmith. He's a little bit west of the turnpike.
People bring their horses to him to be shot.
I don't know if they bring their horses, but he's like a genuine,
It would be like a whole
open
use.
fire blacksmith.
But we're investigating
That-
doing an art,
Yeah.
maybe art along, I don't know if that's something we want to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we don't,
But
we don't
personally,
have to
I don't want to
have,
see a Walgreens.
yeah.
I would not want
We don't have
to
to
see
have
CVS.
beauty salons and restaurants and all of the businesses that go in big shopping centers. We can write this land use category and zoning to only allow uses that are consistent with the character of the town.
The other thing is, I've been, almost since the first day I saw it, I really wanted to revisit this Rural Vista guidelines. I mean, it just doesn't seem to be professional and strong enough. And we had that guy doing the public shopping center, he showed us one thing,
Yeah.
then he came in the next time and he showed us what was really gonna happen. And he had one approved and the other was,
Well,
Maybe that would be worthy of
Yeah,
the town
value.
hiring an architect.
I think there's a lot of really good
good information and data and guidelines in there, but
Yeah.
I think that there are several basic architectural styles in there. And what I was suggesting by including Real Vista guidelines in there was if the board felt that there was one particular style that they thought was most appropriate, or two, focus on those and focus on the architectural characteristics of those couple of styles.
Yeah, I wasn't aiming like an Nantucket idea, I was aiming at more something that would lend to a general quality in a general world that they couldn't do end runs around or, you know, have it. I guess it's like form-based, so it has more structure or more ways that professional planners, et cetera, can enforce it. So however you would use it to enforce it, you know, to up the ante and make it enforceable, however that's done.
Well, it shouldn't be guidelines. It should become like an enforceable document, part of the zoning code, like Jim said
Yeah, so I
earlier.
don't know how you do that, but.
Oh, I can tell you.
Yeah,
Okay.
Veronica knows,
And under this.
if anyone knows.
Under this strategy here, we could even have in our zoning, in our companion zoning, we can have activity center as a use, as long as we define what an activity center is. We can have individual small business as a use in that zoning district, and then we would define what specific uses would be included in an individual small business.
And how does that protect us, though, from a council who says, oh, let's change the zoning code and include all these uses?
Well, it wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever protected from
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It wouldn't.
Just like we've seen in other elections, you get three.
But yeah,
people.
and you can, I mean, we can go as far as saying all you, I mean, we could at this level, you know, prohibit, you know, all uses that are not expressly
Yeah.
permitted, so that someone
Yeah.
can't come in and say, well, we, you know, want to add this, and we
Part of the
can be
conflict.
Right.
very specific into what the uses are. And they would be uses, they wouldn't be commercial low or, you know, that kind of thing, they would be very specific uses.
Veronica?
I was just gonna suggest that, the people here have been waiting very patiently, and maybe they may not wanna stay for the whole discussion, but maybe they would like to make their comments now. Or do you still think we should continue?
Jim, are you just about, or is your?
Yeah, just one more thing, I'd like to get some direction from the board tonight as to whether or not you, just very simplistic at this point, want to pursue that direction as opposed to what we did before, or have some other direction.
Since this is a workshop, we don't need to vote, but I think it would be, if we have consensus, I'm seeing no objections against moving forward.
No, I think it needs a lot, I personally would like to have some more discussion.
Okay, well, let's have some input then from, please give us your name and your address, and you can make your comment.
Althouse,
I didn't get
15151.
that, I'm sorry.
Patricia Althouse, 15151 Okeechobee Boulevard, Loxhatchee Groves.
Okay,
We've also owned property on Okeechobee Boulevard when it used to be a dirt road and did not go through, and it was really rural. We've owned property for over 50 years. And it's very difficult to have people who are newcomers to the community or don't live on Okeechobee Boulevard and understand what we go through as residents, and don't understand that at a certain point in time, if you lost your homestead exemption during that 50 years, and Palm Beach County decided that your property's best use would be commercial, they raised your tax base like it was commercial property, which quadrupled the property taxes, until you then had to put animals back on there, which is, that's another story completely, trying to have animals on Okeechobee Boulevard for liability purposes, you know, as well as just, it's insane. But, and it's not fair that people will say what we can do with our property when we've been there before. I can almost say every single one of you ever came to Loxahatchee.
So what do you,
This is not what I'm saying, well, I have questions to ask, but you asked me, you know, to say who I was and everything. First of all, why weren't we notified of these workshops? And the, you know, when we had the meeting before, we were notified to meet at the Presbyterian, no, the whatever, Presbyterian Church there. And, you know, and we were notified of that, and we had input, and,
did you hear about the moratorium?
oh, in paper, yeah.
And wasn't that in the paper too with it or not?
What, workshops for the
Yeah.
planning and zoning? No.
No?
No, the workshops are not advertised.
No, so, I mean, we have no voice, but things are being decided, what's gonna happen with our property, and yet we have no voice. We have no idea until y'all come up with something that is approved somewhere. That, it's very difficult to be a member of, you know, just to be here.
So where do you see it going? What's a decent payment? I mean, you can't be residential anymore, right? They're
It's
they're
ridiculous.
taxing you as commercial. You
Well,
have
they
to-
were, but
you
now
have to-
we've got the green belt again.
Well, you have to
because-
go to bona fide ag to protect
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
So what do you see as a reasonable payment or a reasonable out? I mean, what, you can't sell it to somebody else's residential.
No,
You basically
no
know,
one's
you
interested.
basically know how much that would be
Yeah.
if you were selling it as a residential property, 1 per 5 or 2 per 10, or whatever it is you have. I don't know what you have, but what do you see
It
as
needs
an
to,
out?
there needs to be residential, I mean, not residential, commercial allowed on Okeechobee Boulevard. Also,
To what level? Or, I mean,
oh, I don't know, I just know that.
you need to be able to sell it so that
For
someone will
commercial
want to buy it.
potential, so that someone will buy it at a fair price.
That's what I'm getting at. What is fair?
What is fair?
Yeah.
Well, 11 years ago, my sister sold the adjacent 5 acres that had nothing on it but a little mobile home thing. But it had been cleared by my father, you know, and she had birds there. And she sold that for $100,000 an acre. And that was 10 years ago.
So that was 2004.
Yeah, or 2005, around there. But here's the
Well, we
deal.
have sort of crash adjustments too. But basically, if you were to see another property sell along Okeechobee that was higher than a residential property,
Well, what happened
Because-
is, that
Go
same
ahead.
year, my mother passed away. So we lost homestead exemption, okay? Down the road, across from the Presbyterian Church, some people that I knew sold their house. It was a residential place. They sold it to Valley Crest Farms, okay? Because of that, I went to the county and I showed them all the information. And I said, nothing has changed. It's still a little dinky little house on 6 acres of land, and,
was
you
this,
know.
was this a special master in a tax hearing?
No, I went
Okay.
to the property appraiser's office,
Okay.
and he showed me, I was gonna go to the tax hearing, whatever. But the man at the property appraiser's office showed me all this paperwork of all the properties that had sold in Okeechobee Boulevard, and that's how they decided that, you know, I would pay the same amount of taxes that Valley Crest Farm paid for that property. That was just one of them. I have them at home in a file. But that's the first time that they things got messed up with our property. The second thing was, and you don't need to hear all my own personal things, but
That's what we're here for.
well, okay, well, the second thing was when the water control district decided to assess us for the North Sea Road OGEN, road stabilization. We're paying $1,000 a year for 10 years for a road that we don't even use. But because they drew their little lines, you know, and decided that we were in the, let's see, the zone of benefit of having North Sea Road. So that's $10,000 at least that we're paying, you know, $1,000 a year for 10 years for North Sea Road stabilization. Okay, something else that we didn't have any control over. What I'm saying is every time, I feel kind of like the Indians, you know. Our property, its use, its value, everything, other people have decided about that, and I have had no choice to talk about it. But that's neither here, and that's why I'm here, because I wanted to find out
Well,
what.
this is happening downtown too, where you zone
Did
something
you,
at
you
5
said
stories.
you have questions, right?
Yes, I have questions, that's what I need to ask you about questions. One thing is, I never understood why you all considered Okeechobee Boulevard Main Street, Loxahatchee Groves for the community. I would say the main street for Loxahatchee Groves would be D Road. And as far as the equestrian stuff would go, you know, I wouldn't ride a horse down Okeechobee Boulevard. 3 times someone has gone through at high speed and gone through our fence and knocked our fence down. You know, God forbid if there had been an animal there, it would have been smashed, whatever, but it's not safe.
Well, we need to design something so that it is safe. There are ways to design to make pedestrians more safe, bicyclists more safe.
Well, what I'm asking is,
And we need connectivity with
Would
the
people-
north-south roads.
would people want to ride, where are they riding from? If they're, I mean, I understand riding if they live on, you know, B Road, say, okay? I understand if they're riding down B Road, whatever, but would they go to Okeechobee Boulevard to go over to
Yeah.
ride to C or D?
Yeah, it's like you're leaving your house with a car and you want to visit somebody from A to C road, something like that.
Well,
It's
then
just the ability.
Personally, I would choose a better route. I'd go Collecting Canal where there's not quite as much zoom
Well, we
through
have
traffic,
homes
or I
that
would
come
go,
too.
yeah, I understand, but, you know, or North Road, someplace other than that.
Yeah.
I just was wondering how come D Road was never considered the main road of Loxahatchee? Because F Road and D Road both have the canal, they have the main road, and then they also have an access road that runs parallel to, you know, the main road. The access road would be perfect for horses to ride down. Car would have to go into the canal before it would hit a horse, you know.
We just want to provide the same amenity to all.
Well, and I also, there's other places in Florida that are, you know, up in Ocala, say. They have wonderful crossovers for riding over the highways. If you, I mean, the Cross Florida Greenway, whatever, goes right over I-75. And it has not only a way to get over the main road there, but it also has plants that shield the horses from seeing, you know, whatever on either side.
Horses like
Which,
this.
yeah, you have to have a little bit of safety, you know, thought about, but that kind of stuff. But the other thing that I was wondering about is, I don't see how you can, the town of Loxahatchee can tell Palm Beach County that they don't want the road 4-lane. And it really bothers me that people who don't live on Okeechobee Boulevard have the idea that keeping it 2-lane is the best thing. Because I can tell you just going to the mailbox, there are only certain times of the day that I will go and get mail because the traffic is unbelievable. I can't tell you how many times people speed, whether they're on a 2-lane road, Okeechobee Boulevard, or wherever. And if it was 4-lane, at least there'd be a lane for the speeders to get by and let the other people travel at a normal rate of speed. It's really dangerous to be a resident on Okeechobee Boulevard. If you had a business where you had a parking lot or something, you know, where people could drive in and park and whatever, that's a little bit better than having a residence. I don't know. I'm not making much sense, but probably because I'm so emotional about this whole issue.
All of my children and my wife got hit by a car pulling out of, we were pulling out of V Road, but whacked, so.
On Okeechobee.
So
Yeah, it's, but really 3 times of someone just running through our fence. I mean, and we have a big fence, but, you know, it's scary. It's not a place for people to have a happy homestead. It's not like it used to be. I mean, you know, before Okeechobee Road was paved and everything, if your pig got out, you could send your 10-year-old niece to go get a stick and chase the pig back down Okeechobee Road back to the house. But you can't do that anymore. Your pig gets out, you know, car will hit it. If your horse gets out, God forbid, the horse and the car and the occupants of the car will get hurt. It's just terrible.
Thank you for your comments. Sundar, did you want to comment? You want to comment on anything?
No.
We need to get some things wrapped up.
You have to just to listen to see what, you know, what's
We're trying to get out of here by 8. So I think what we need to do is to, Keith, do you have any comments you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
I think what I'd like to get done in the next 20 minutes is to give Jim some firm direction. I think we have consensus that the plan that you presented first is DOA. And I think that creating a sector plan, if you will, or a future land use element plan specifically for Okeechobee is a good idea. You outlined that well in the agenda pack, and I think that's a good place to start. So if we can all just get to that page of the agenda pack and let's just hammer through that from top to bottom. This current staff proposal, is that it, Jim, or is it
Yes.
B1?
No.
We're starting on
No, it's the one behind that.
that's the next one down.
C1. That's just a very preliminary outline. I didn't want to spend too much time on that at this point. That was not something that the board wanted to do.
So we're on page like 22, in
21.
C1.
Yeah, 21, sorry.
Could I add something? I'd like to add another layer. I used to argue the tax arguments before the special master doing those things. I do not like the way they analyze properties as what it could be and charge for what it could be. They've done that, I don't know, I just don't think it's right. And it pushes development. But if maybe we could create some kind of economic model where we could see, like, what did Valley Crest sell for per square foot? You know, after, we gotta focus after the crash and in the sort of financial section of the graph that we're in now. But see if we can come to an understanding of what the dynamics are out there. Maybe send it to the financial committee, you know, to get some kind of, because if we were to do, you know, development rights or something, we would have to have some understanding of the economics that are going on and have some idea of what is a reasonable chip shot out of the sand trap, you know? I mean, you don't want to do 5-story condominiums and then pay for 5-story condominiums, you know?
Well, I think that's one
extreme.
approach. I think that's
Well, we should look at
well
it,
beyond where
somebody,
we are today.
yeah, but I think somebody should start on that. Maybe the financial committee, or somebody should look at that, to have an understanding,
I,
because that's driving it.
I'm concerned about that because I take the view of planning as being what benefits the whole. And I certainly don't want us to be planning based on trying to make certain property owners whole, although I am sensitive
No, I
to the
understand.
situation. But I don't like doing that because a developer can walk in and say, I bought this 20-acre, in order to make me whole, you gotta give me this zoning. I don't like that at all.
I don't either.
I'd rather decide what's best, I'd rather recommend what's collectively is determined as best for the community, and hopefully helps all the members of the community.
Well, anything
But I have a
above
question.
1.5.
Lawrence, she has the floor, please.
But I did have a question. I I heard you say that Okeechobee's being considered as the main drag. I actually don't think it, to my knowledge, that it is in the comp plan or anywhere else. Okeechobee's been considered the main focus of town. I think we've talked in the past about it being on Southern, I know was one, and
So
some other
we're trying to
places.
force all the commercial.
Yeah, but I don't think that there's any thought that it is. I did mention earlier that if we're going to do something and make it commercial, maybe we ought to make it a town center, but that's such a rough idea, and I don't know if that's ever been discussed by anybody else, so I wouldn't want you to think that. And I had another question too, and that is, you said that your property was being appraised at its highest and best use, which is now commercial, but I'm assuming that you mean its highest and best use as allowed by law, which is, for example, as a wholesale nursery. So I can't imagine the property appraiser appraising a piece of property for something that is not even allowed by law.
Yeah, it's strictly based on what the property was sold on either side, or around,
The
the
property sales
Right,
on
property
Okeechobee
That's how
Boulevard.
it's assessed.
And as I said, that same year,
Okay.
I have the list of all the properties,
Right.
and one of them was, the one that sticks out in my mind was Valley Crest.
Right, so the property appraiser is looking at the value of your property based on the value of everybody else's, and the value of your property is increasing, which is a good thing. I
No.
think.
If you can sell it.
Well,
You can't
if
sell it.
I realize that you're paying taxes on it, but, on the increased value, but anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
And if I could just add
Right.
to that. And again, I mean, I've been a resident for more than 25 years in the town of Waxahachie Groves and have to drive down D Road to try to get out. So I know what you're saying about Okeechobee Boulevard. And at certain times of the day, you can't. You sit there and try to make that left-hand turn. But, I don't plan on leaving here. And I understand you want to sell your property and go, and you want to get the highest and best use. And shoot, if I could double my money by changing the zoning on my property and leave, I would too. But that's not what we're here to do. That's not our job, is, to give you the highest and best use. And we've had this conversation with people along Southern Boulevard. There was a woman who came in and said, I need a higher zoning because it's my retirement. And, we said no. Commission, the town council gave it to her anyway, because she thought that the DOT was gonna come through and buy that piece of property for water retention. They upped the zoning to commercial. She asked for more money, and DOT said, never mind, we're gonna pick another piece of property. So now we've created a legal non-conforming use. We have a single-family house sitting on a piece of property that's zoned commercial. She thought her big payday was gonna come in, and it didn't. She's paying higher taxes on a piece of property that she thought, now that it's zoned commercial, she was gonna be able to sell.
We didn't ask for
I'm
a
not-
change in.
I'm not saying that you are, but what I'm saying is, we're looking at this as a long-term thing. We're not looking at it to try to get someone's property to be able to sell so they can then leave, to make it easier for someone to be able to sell their property and go, so that Mr. Developer can come in and then try to do the same thing. You know, we're looking at this as a community, because I want to stay here. My children love it here. They want to stay here. I don't want Okeechobee to be a 4-lane highway. I want it to remain 2 lanes, or possibly a 4-lane rural vista if it has to be. I prefer the cars to go down Southern Boulevard. I don't want them on Okeechobee Boulevard. That's why I spend so many hours a month coming and sitting on this voluntary board to do what I can to try to keep the community in the way that I would like it to be. So that's why we do this, not to hurt anyone or to try to tell people what to do with their property.
Yes, Lawrence?
I think anything we do is gonna be better than 1 and 5, or 2 and 10. Anything we do is gonna be better than that, value-wise. What, you know, just as if I was operating downtown, trying to analyze things, or operating here, I would try to find out what the economic underpinnings are. That was my.
Well, let's go through this alternative of the, let's just take number 1 and give staff some direction on this. So number 1, create new future land use category for Okeechobee Boulevard. A suggestion would be rural low intensity. General description of types of low intensity uses and FAR along the corridor. So if you got your little test with you somewhere that can you know, have us use, let's just sort of run down through that list of things that was actually first handed out on March 26th of 2010, Okeechobee Boulevard Workshop. And I'll just read them off and we'll get a sort of a consensus here. Art and frame shop, yes or no?
Where are you at?
It's on anywhere in there. It's just
That was part of the,
27. Oh, I got it, all right.
Is it in there, page 27? Okay, good, all right. So, art and frame shop,
And vote?
just, you know, I mean, no comments, just yes or no. Yeah, I said yes.
Yes.
No. Okay. No. Okay, so the no's have it on that. Well, actually, Jim, you
How many?
since you know, it doesn't matter. It's either a simple majority, we got 5. Okay, auto service, auto parts, yes, no?
No.
No, okay. Banks, loan off.
No.
No. Barbershop,
No.
beauty and nails,
No.
bicycle service.
Yes.
I didn't have a problem with that.
You've everybody riding bikes around, all those Guatemalans all ride bikes.
I'm not gonna go to somebody and get them fixed. We gotta spend money for that.
Well, bikes seem to be part of this place.
Well, what is it, yes or no?
Yes.
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 I said no.
All right, majority says yes. Coffee shop,
Yes.
no. Ice cream, no. Consignments, no. Convenience store, no. Copies and a postal service, no. A deli cafe, no. Electronics and phones, no. Fitness center, no. A florist,
Yes.
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 Yeah.
So a retail florist shop, okay? Gas convenience,
No.
gift cards, no. Jewelry and jewelry repair, no. Ladies apparel, no. Laundry and dry cleaning, liquor, wine, no. Men's apparel, no. Natural foods and vitamins,
Yes.
yes, no.
I
No.
didn't have a
Selling
problem with that,
produce.
though.
Selling produce?
Natural foods, yeah.
Selling produce.
Oh, if it's
That's what I was
Selling-
thinking, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, no, I was
Selling
thinking
stuff
GNC.
grown here.
Oh, you were thinking GNC?
Isn't that what you mean?
Let's just, let's be sure that says, like a produce stand.
I was thinking like a natural.
Natural foods, organic foods.
Like a Whole Food store.
Like a Whole.
No, I
Not
was
like a
thinking,
Whole Foods, like what they
no.
have in that section of Whole Foods.
Like a bed, not bed nurse. What's it called on 441?
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay, I
Yeah,
did,
like a bed
I thought it was a
nurse
GNC.
or-
Like a bed
Yeah.
nurse.
Okay.
You know what that is?
Yeah, over by Olympia on Forest Hill.
No, it's all the way.
Yeah, that
It's
guy.
all the way, all the way
The
south. It's
tomato
south of-
guy.
South of Atlantic.
But I know who you're
On the
talking
west
about.
side of, say, Road
It's
7.
south of Boynton Beach.
Yes.
South of Boynton
Yeah.
Beach.
Yes.
Like a Bednar's, okay, so that was natural, okay. Optical hearing.
What?
Huh?
What?
I can't see what you're saying. Pets and grooming supplies. Well, we already got essentially that coming into
Yeah.
a big dog.
Right.
I was gonna say yes.
No,
Wow.
they don't have a retail there, do they?
Well, they're gonna be doing that for
Retail?
their dogs.
Red Barn has grooming supplies.
Well, grooming, but, all right.
Professional medical offices. I don't see any problem with those.
No, I don't think we need that on Okeechobee, we have all that on Southern.
All
There's
right.
so much of it everywhere else.
Restaurant lounge, no. Specialty fast food restaurant, no. Specialty food market,
Well,
no.
if it's produce, I suppose.
Well, I think that sort of falls into the Bednar's thing,
Mhm.
you know, so something like the Bednar's. Sporting goods store,
No,
no. Travel agency.
no.
Now, I had put down here, now, most of the farriers that I see around the town are mobile. They've got a trailer behind them and they go door to door. We got an equestrian person here in the room. Are there any farrier shops, blacksmith shops in the western communities?
Not that I'm familiar with. Most farriers are full unit, mobile,
Yeah.
column facilities themselves.
Is
Most
that
of- most
because
of
there
them have-
aren't, because they can't go somewhere?
It's hard to bring a
No.
horse to a fair.
No, because the shoe is pre-made to certain sizes, they don't make them anymore. They come in pre-made sizes and then
And they just install them?
Yeah.
I know that's not the right word, but.
Butcher shop. Now, let's clarify that. A butcher shop is someplace that if you go out and shoot
Kill
a
a
hog, and you can bring it back, they're gonna dress it for you, or a deer, or if suddenly a cow should happen to die in your property.
It sounds like an acceptable
yes, because
home
that's very
occupation.
difficult to get.
Yeah, so I would think a butcher, a true butcher shop, you know, not someplace where they're selling cold cuts.
Well, if there was a butcher shop selling cold cuts.
Well, you know, if it's in there, you know.
There's a word for that, though, I think.
There is a word
There's a
for
word
that.
It's called salami.
No, there's
No, there's a
actually
word for
a
that.
word for a guy who does that.
It's not the tanner, but it's,
Model shop, trains, remote controls, and drones, things like that.
Drones.
No.
Yeah, I think. Airboat store, I think that'd be cool.
what?
An airboat store.
On Southern Boulevard would be great.
Well, no, I got a guy building airboats right down the street from me.
Yeah. And those mud buggies,
Swamp.
swamp buggies.
All those things. I
A
think
friend of mine
that's a
built
great land use. I don't know.
I mean, actually, well, not building them.
They build them.
No, not build, they shouldn't be allowed to build them on Okeechobee. Oh, but he's building them in his house?
Yeah.
That's,
Now, we have.
there's all
These-
kinds of
selling
home
them.
businesses up and down the roads. Have you
Yeah.
driven down Sea Road lately? There's a trailer park of all the equestrian people, the people that come down for 6 months out of the year to work over in Wellington. They park their travel trailers on Sea Road. There is a trailer park on Sea Road.
And that should
I
have
don't-
been there.
Well, no
there's no,
kidding, but that's, you know,
The-
we're now
I think
the,
that just entered code enforcement. This
Oh, is it? Okay.
Last week, I think.
It's also going to be on agenda next town council meeting.
Well, there was one on B Road that had a dentist office in there, out of his trailer.
Is that
Has
cottage industry?
anybody been to an art show lately and seen the guy with the horseshoe sculpture?
I've seen the horseshoe sculpture.
I'd love to get that guy to set up shop on Okeechobee.
Yeah, but then you would have to open it up to all art dealers.
I
You
have
couldn't
no
just say-
problem with that. I
Art dealers.
Equestrian art.
Well, no, I'm not art dealers, I think that art
Artists.
creators, you know.
Artists. Well, why couldn't you say artists?
But they can do that now. You can create horseshoes along Okeechobee, horseshoe sculptures along Okeechobee right now.
They could, I got one on, I bought one.
So,
It's not-
I asked a bunch of guys that work around here what they were seeing, they keep mentioning that tractor trailer, so what, truck and trailer.
Tractor supply.
Tractor
Tractor supply, yeah, that's coming to be, and,
Yeah, there is one coming.
yeah.
Oh, there's one coming right?
Okay, so let's go to the next page, where it was the, starting with adult entertainment.
No, go back.
Go back, all right, well, anyway, it's, I don't know where it
Page
is.
22, 3.
Let's see. Well, let's just go,
22.
let's just start with the one that says D1. And do it. Starting with single-family dwellings, I'm not sure those are really uses.
Yeah. I guess
That's
it
going
is.
away, right?
No, you would still want that.
Okay.
And see, now, that's one of the things, I was sort of poo-pooed on this when I brought it up once before, you know, but when you have some really weird-looking properties, is to give them whatever density that acreage has, and then allow them to cluster on it. They have one entry and maybe 5 homes on it. Not zero lot line or anything like that, but, you know, what comes to mind is that property across from Day, which is 20 acres, but it's very thin.
But couldn't they do that now? I
Clustering
mean,
is
if they
great.
came in?
We don't have a PUD ordinance to, got minimum lot size of 5 acres. And we don't have a PUD that will allow them to get a waiver or a smaller lot size.
yeah, but how is that rural? That's not rural.
Well, yes, I think.
It's a new way of thinking rural, but there's a lot of people that have gone that way that preserve the green instead of having roads all over it. It's a different idea of rural. They've done it out in the desert, different places.
Also, they've done it up at Jupiter Farms. You know, back behind Burt Reynolds Ranch is they put together a nice thing. They got a lake there, and the houses are there, you know, but the density's correct. It's just that they've got some open space.
The legitimate fear is that somebody will come and cluster, and then later they'll try and allow another cluster and another cluster.
Well, I
And
don't-
so you have to address that.
It's the
But-
deed restrictions.
But hold on one
that
second,
work.
you know, I live on a quarter acre, so there's clustering within our community
Sure.
already,
At one time.
Those are the
So-
76 putts, right?
But-
76.
you know.
But I think that's something that, you know, at the right spot, you know, maybe there's 3 allowed along Okeechobee. If somebody wants to gang together and put some land together. And then you got one entry, typically it would need to be on Okie and, really on a feeder road, one of the letter roads, and not on Okie. So that they're getting out on B or D or C or whatever. You know, but it's something where, you know, it would have to meet, you know, some standards that would, you know, come up.
Well, the council did entertain that and was supportive of that. The first proposal that came in on the Simon property where the college is going, they had some commercial in front and then 75 acres or so in the back, and they allowed them
19
to,
technically.
yeah, and they allowed that, then to cluster those units and create a bunch of open space and horse trails on that property. So that wouldn't be the first time the council's ever heard that concept.
Yeah, I think that's something that, because we can't have it all, you know, some sort of, you know, blacksmith shop.
But here's the question, are we leaning toward creating additional residential on Okeechobee? Or do we want to keep the residential that we have and try to limit it? And, I mean, what are we trying to create? Because now we're going more residential.
Well, I think what we're trying to.
This is just a question.
I think what we're trying to create is, as Jim and I were talking earlier, the whole idea of the comp plan is, this is what the town looks like when it's done.
No, I understand what the comp plan is.
But it never would have come up. I mean, people said, we don't want commercial in Okeechobee, resoundingly. So, but it
Well,
never would have come up if the
I don't know
people
about-
living, if the people living there weren't pressing for a
Well-
solution. That's why it keeps coming up. Otherwise.
But
it
that's
wouldn't.
fair, though. I mean, it's a discussion that has to happen, because we're a community, and everybody has a voice within the community. I think it's a discussion that has to happen, but the
If you-
question is, what's the
If you
answer?
revision a way of having residential that fits, in which they are happy being there, the new residents, and it fits overall the vision of rural Waxahachie, or whatever the vision is now. At some point, I don't even really know what it is, but whatever it is, if it fits the vision and it fits this new idea of a plan, then why shouldn't it be part of it?
I,
No, I'm sorry.
no, I agree.
I think any new district or land use category that we create along Okeechobee would include residential.
Mhm.
So the ability to cluster would, might give residential a greater opportunity to occur.
Well, let's do that residential with clustering, and I think if you can come up with, maybe it's 20 acres, and maybe the density is still 1 in 5, but that's pretty expensive for that house, but maybe then allow for a specific use there, maybe there is a community barn. For the, for that cluster of homes and a community turnout, paddock areas and things like that.
I think there's a couple communities like that west of Summer Ranch.
Davy has
Lion
some.
Street, yeah.
They have
Okay,
created
so, yeah.
within the
Sign
community.
that. Keith, you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. A little earlier, the RV park that Alan's running on South Road, Seawood was mentioned. And there is a concern that other properties are opening up, as well as the truck stops that we have now on 6th Court and E Road. The equestrian industry and the nurseries require a substantial labor force. They've converted over the years trailers, some of them legal, some of them are not. But there's a need for some seasonal workforce housing. If that can be thrown into the idea of trying to control commercial on Okeechobee by creating some little cluster of housing that might benefit that population, benefit those industries, but also raise revenue for the town versus a single lot residence. I don't know the finance of it. This is just something I've been formulating sitting here, but that might be an idea of how to control commercial and also serve the town with some housing for the workforce.
That would be, I think technically that would be a congregate living facility,
Or are you thinking like a multifamily,
more of a
Type.
dorm.
are you thinking dorm or multifamily?
Not dorm or multifamily, a small cluster, not so
Hotel
much
six.
not your typical urban sprawl apartment complex or anything of that nature, but just some type of housing units availability for.
Well, if you drove along what used to be Old Tangerine towards Sea Road, there were a bunch of clustered of homes there that were really not homes. They were, and the homeless lived there while they were, intellectually enslaved again properties. Just when we look back in the history of the town, there were
North of Southern.
just north of Southern,
Mhm.
quarters for gentlemen.
That, I mean, what you're saying makes sense.
Bernard, you have to leave your excuse.
She's at home. I didn't know that's right.
One thing I said,
Yeah.
I'd like to congratulate on your appointment.
Oh, I was appointed?
You were appointed as last time council meeting.
Oh, really?
No,
No,
officially.
You were?
So you're not an alternate anymore.
I didn't know that.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, thank you.
Okay, Lawrence?
Yeah,
Are you sure about that? Because the agenda still says I'm an alternate. That doesn't,
It took a while for me to become chair of another committee meeting too.
Well, I wrote the agenda before I went on vacation, and I was on vacation for the council meeting.
okay.
My fault.
No, that's right.
I was thinking of that truck thing you were talking about on 6, as going through here and on page 4. And again, I don't know if you guys down here can redo this with teeth, or if it does have teeth, but page 4, that development design standards, second sentence, truck stops. It is our desire, developments of such as warehouses are not acceptable in Waxahachie Groves.
They are throwing the book as we speak. He's been given 5 days to remove the vehicles off the property. Code enforcement for illegal clearing, filling in, one guy's filling in a pond on the east side of E Road.
And it's hard pack.
No, yeah, all,
So, I don't know.
they're-
But I don't know if this has any teeth, or if you guys can put teeth in
It
there.
has to put it, we have to put it in the comp plan. This is a.
Or even the zoning code is fine, like the land use.
Public schools.
Maybe our
Okay,
next
so where are
meeting,
we?
we could go over this list.
Number 3.
Yeah,
What if at the next meeting we went over this list?
Okay, let's do the list on the next meeting, and let's figure out when the next meeting is gonna be. Now, the very next meeting is gonna be the day from,
right, and then our next
Right.
meeting's the
Yeah.
Thursday after that.
and that's also the night of the candidate forum. And I won't be
Oh,
here, but
it is?
we really need as a community to attend that candidate forum. So I'd like to see if we can do it on March 5th.
Okay, well, just to back up just for a second, the meeting next week, the only thing on the agenda is the day property. We could go through this list
Okay.
at that meeting as well, and have that be the only thing that, the Okeechobee.
After the day property.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, we can do that.
Okay.
All right, and then the meeting on the 26th is in Kansas.
Where's the candidate form? I don't even know.
Palms West Presbyterian Church, 7 o'clock till 9 or 10.
Do you want to try to set up an alternate date for that right now?
5th, March 5th,
What day of the week is that?
Thursday.
Thursday? Yeah. And that's fine with me.
Okay.
Big thing.
Come prepared to that meeting with your rural vistas and, and put a line through the ones that you don't want to see. You know, for example, I don't like really the Outback Steakhouse design that's in here. But I think that McDonald's with a mansard roof, not that it has to be a McDonald's, but I think any building that we're gonna have a mansard roof on, I think will look very nice.
I'm more concerned with the controls that you guys could come up with, so that when they come before you, that you can say they comply or they don't comply. I mean, how can somebody on B Road,
Yeah,
Right.
like the way Joe Lolani
Yeah,
came.
that
in
was-
and
yeah.
did this
Yeah,
for the
can I
community.
make a suggestion? First of all, I would like to recommend that we have, hire an architect to take a look at these and make any corrections or any additions or anything that has to be done, make it a good professional document. And then maybe we should consider having, I hate to say this because might be considered bureaucracy, is maybe a 3-person architectural review board that applies those guidelines to anybody who has to come in and meet the Rural Vista guidelines. And that could either be composed of maybe 1 architect or 2 architects and a citizen or somebody like that.
That sounds like it's got the word ka-ching attached to it.
no volunteers, you're saying like
No,
a
volunteer, no.
board?
Volunteer
Yeah,
architects.
Board,
volunteers.
board.
Yeah, that, and maybe,
Just like, these are planners volunteer, you guys aren't judges.
exactly.
Well, and I differentiate between architects and town planners, there's a big difference.
Yeah,
Big
yeah,
difference.
these are planners, and architects are architects.
Yeah, and the big problem with architects are it's distinctly style, you know, we can choose modernist or residential, commercial.
Yeah, but if this is the guidelines, and you take the guidelines and you insert them in your code, and then you have an architectural review board, they have to.
But it's, to me, it's really more of a town planner than it is, because when you start getting, what I've seen happens is like, I want this kind of picket fence, it becomes,
Oh, yeah.
but you don't wanna get into
No, it's
that.
not that, it's,
No, you're right.
but
you
you
wanna
want
look
to
at a place
provide
like-
latitudes, but you need something where you don't get a bait and switch.
Sure.
Yeah, but I have to tell you, as a planner, I mean, I know of architecture. I could probably identify some 10 basic styles, but I could never do that. But I think an architect, maybe 1 or 2 architects on a board and the rest citizens or however, could, if they're well-trained, and I believe they are, they don't design, they only react to a design, and they could say yea or nay.
Well, if
If I
you
would have-
look at places that have had successful, I believe successful, intent and execution is like Seaside, Florida, with, you know, they have a set of rules, and actually, it's kind of incredible because their rules don't tell you what to do, but all the houses end up looking very similar.
The whole code is form-based, there's no FARs.
They don't have anybody telling you, you gotta do this or that, they just say, you can't have the same architect doing 2 projects next to you. They have an interesting set of rules,
It's
you
the
know?
most famous.
And it's
form-based.
just a great,
Mm.
it's really, it looks fake, it's so, it works so well.
I just have one question. Is there a way that we can, I know it's on the website, I saw the meetings posted on the website, but isn't there a way that we could have just got the word out so that we could have had a better participation? Because I know when we brought it up at the town council meeting, we actually asked for a workshop. You know, we asked for like that full-blown workshop to take place, and the town council said no. They did not want that to happen again, but we did, we asked for it. But it would be better to have more participation than less.
Oh, I agree. I'll see if I can find out if we can advertise it in the town crier.
That'd be good.
You know what, I did see it advertised, I thought it was in the town crier, when they talked about, I saw it advertised somewhere in a newspaper article, where they said they were going to have a meeting. I saw it on the website, but I was thinking, I mean, how many properties are there on Okeechobee? We couldn't send out a mailer?
71.
I mean, 71 times, what is it, 43 cents? Come on, really?
Yeah, really, yeah.
How much
Well, I
money?
mean, if we,
Seriously, we have a lot of money.
if we could get a fixed meeting schedule for the next 2 or 3 months, maybe we could do that.
You could send out one
Yeah.
flyer
Yeah.
with the next dates on it. I think it's only fair.
Yeah. It's not, we don't want the.
I'll buy the
hillbillies
stamps
and
if
the
it's-
sprawl Indians to come in here and tell us how to do it.
Yeah. And one more comment on the architectural review thing. I have a feeling that with the number of committee meetings that staff already has, and that's not gonna sit well with the staff or the council, but what I could suggest is we do have a DRC, Development Review Committee, and that's essentially consists of other agencies that we want to get our comments from, like Solid Waste Authority, Fire Rescue, Police, and the Health Department, things like that. Maybe we can find a couple architects
Mm-hmm.
to be on our DRC, where they wouldn't necessarily have a meeting and have a vote, but they would send us the comments of which we could pass on to you.
Not a bad idea.
I think that could work.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think that could work.
And in that case, it probably ought to be an architect who is not a resident of the town.
Yeah.
The reason I say that.
It might be harder to get a volunteer for that, but we can, I'll try.
What do you think of, was it your idea or Lawrence's idea to have this?
Veronica,
Veronica's
but
idea?
I agree with that.
Somebody brought
To
it up.
have this codified, in other words,
Oh, that was my idea, yeah.
I have some sample ordinances that do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, because the only, there's a couple general references in the code, and a couple in the comp plan that says you have to be consistent with the Rio Vista guidelines. And what does that mean?
Well, one of the things that we're gonna do, so go through your Rio Vista guidelines and mark the ones that you like and mark the ones you don't like, and
So we
read
don't like
through
the
it.
idea of
It's
having
not a
an
big
architect
document.
and
will-
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
much rather have it, I wish we could find an architect who could come in and say, this is the appropriate design that you're looking for. If this is what you want, this is what you need. This is what you want, this is what you need, rather than lay people trying to determine.
I hear what you're saying, but when it comes down to, you know, like the Supreme Court justice, you know, when they were making the determination on porn, I know what it is when I see it. And just like with this, I know what I like when I see it, you know, like the building on the cover here. You know, that's Burt Reynolds Park up in Jupiter.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily wanna see that.
Well, no, but it's an
Personally,
idea, and
but-
there's a couple other, I'm gonna, you know,
Yeah,
bring
but
in,
Dennis,
if you
what-
have anything, bring it in.
Well, that's maybe that's the way to go. Maybe we bring in what we like, or use from this what we like, and give it to the architect, and say, now you take that and tell us what's appropriate. But I don't think.
Over in, on Mockley Road in Lincoln.
Yeah, I'm feeling it
Well,
wrong.
Rick, I'm not an architect myself, but I think you're gonna be really impressed with what the Day property. And
Don't play one on TV.
I have a feeling,
Normally in espresso.
I have a feeling that, you know, you may really like that, and might be able to use that as some kind of a.
So how great would it be if we could have gotten one of these, one of our, you know, blood-sucking developers to agree to, you know, give us a few of their
That would be an distraction.
lower level after their approval.
I brought some traffic counts that I also had, wanted to kind of tie in with the road idea, but, you know, I had 98, 2000, 2003, 11, and 12, and I was wondering if you could give us a list of the rest of them, if they have them.
Traffic counts
Yeah.
on Oki,
Yeah.
peak hour.
Yeah.
You know, average daily or current year estimate?
Yeah, I think it's published up through, certainly through 2014, I don't think they have 2015 yet, but,
So if we could have those just to,
on Okeechobee.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Can I make a comment about that too? I didn't make it before, and I know I'm extending my own time, I apologize, but, you know, there's research has indicated that when you make lane improvements or road improvements, the traffic increases by, I think the average is 120%. So when you go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, you're gonna get more than double the traffic. And I don't think people realize that. You can see what happened over here in Southern, when you increased Southern, the traffic speed, average speed went from 45 to 60. And that's what happens when you do that. So I think we should all be cognizant of what the reality is when you make lane improvements and increase roadway size. Just want to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get my doors blown almost every time I make my right-hand turn up the F road. Somebody's behind me with their,
Yeah, yeah.
tipped up, big truck and,
Yeah, well, that's true.
The light at D Road might make a difference.
Mhm.
the roundabout at F would make the difference too.
Yes.
The roundabout at F and
People don't
at,
know how to use roundabouts. They don't know how to get on the turnpike in the hot, they don't know how to exit the turnpike on Hot Lane. So they don't know how to use roundabouts. I mean,
No, that's the whole idea behind the traffic calming device. Because they've done it around the world at this point. They've taken away the traffic lights, put the roundabout, and the statistics have shown about 90% less accidents and 99% less fatality.
the roundabout?
That's
Yes,
right.
that's true.
That's right.
That's absolutely
Right.
true.
That's what's been done, you know, with the roundabout. So, yes, all you do is go on Southern Boulevard, you'll find out how you have to come down to almost stop before you get to the roundabout. That's the whole idea behind it.
Well, I've seen an accident right in front of the house there on Okeechobee Boulevard, and evidently the person that got hit didn't have proper licensing or whatever.
Is that a couple
Because-
days ago, right in front of, between E and?
No, I'm talking about just, it's been a while back, as I went out to get the mail. But somebody got rear-ended and they left.
Where'd you-
They didn't even stop to do anything because I'm sure they weren't even a licensed driver, whatever. You know, that's the kind of stuff that goes down.
That's why you want to be sure you have your uninsured.
Down the dirt roads, I pulled 4 or 5 cars out of the,
She did it right.
canal there
Between
at,
that
Yeah,
and this is this.
E Road and stop sign.
Yeah, we can mark it up. I'm gonna get a couple of
Yeah,
I saw the
Just
dump
push the
truck
red
came
light.
right under that
Yeah.
dump truck.
Can you see it?
I don't understand how they hit head on.
Red button.
Yeah, the front of the car was smashed, spun around, I don't understand how that happened, because the dump truck had skid
Oh, you
marks.
already turned it off.
Like 200 feet. So I don't know how
You
this
did,
car
you did
hit
the
the
report
dump.
about that stuff.
Night, Veronica.
And it wasn't even
Oh,
smushed,
oh,
it was just
totally
over
off.
into the ditch.
Clock, next,
She told me how to turn it on, but not how to turn it off.
okay, thanks for your input.
Okay, thanks, Dennis.